talk some sports because we have some answers.
Do we?
We have some answers. We were talking yesterday from 3 to 6 right here. Who would the Carolina Hurricanes go against? Well, now we know. Game 7
finally
was last night, and we thought it was going to be a little bit more drama than what it actually was.
No, the New Jersey Devils, for those who don't know, shut out the New York Rangers 4-0. And looking at the game, the New York Rangers couldn't even get past center ice hardly at all.
Yeah,
it was a beatdown in Game 7.
Absolutely a beatdown in Game 7, even though a lot of us here, we wanted to have that rematch from last year.
I'm kind of disappointed at the result in that regard.
Of course, the New York Rangers last season eliminated the Carolina Hurricanes in 7 games. That was a series where the road team lost every single time except Game 7 when the Rangers came to PNC Arena and beat the Carolina Hurricanes to eliminate them from the Stanley Cup playoffs. So a lot of people wanted that rematch. We're not going to get that rematch. Instead, we're going to have the Canes versus the New Jersey Devils. The Canes 2-2 versus the Devils during the regular season. We don't know who's going to be in net quite yet. I think the consensus between me and you, Dennis, is that we want Freddie Anderson to be there.
We do. I think based off of what he did in game number 6 against the Islanders, 33 saves on 34 shots against in that overtime win. He kept that game 1-0 until Sebastian Aho tied it in the middle of the third period, and then Paul Stastny eventually had the game winner. Here's the thing, though, is that just because the way Freddie played in game 6, we all know how the award works, just because you deserve something or you may have done enough to earn something doesn't mean it's going to be given to you. So if you start looking at the regular season statistics about what the goalies for the Carolina Hurricanes did against the New Jersey Devils, because sometimes that plays a major factor, right? Raanta was 1-0. On New Year's Day, the Canes got a shootout win, 5-4 over the Devils. He only had an .875 save percentage. Again, gave up 4 goals in that game. Now, Canes did win, again, but it was a shootout, though. A little bit of a different situation. Freddie Anderson didn't play against the New Jersey Devils this entire season because the other 3 games against the Devils came place when Pyotr Kochetkov was in net. Kochetkov was 1-2 in the regular season against the New Jersey Devils, like you mentioned a moment ago, 2-2. I don't know. That's the thing, is that we don't have, based off what this season was in terms of track record in regards to, all right, if Freddie was 3-0 against the Devils this season and had a goals against of just over 1 and had a .947 save percentage or something along those lines, then yeah, Freddie, or vice versa with Raanta, but we don't have that numbers to go off of. So it's based off of gut and feel.
Here's what we do have to go off of, though, and if this means anything, I think it should. Rod Brindamore said after Game 6 that he felt like with Freddie's performance against the Islanders, he felt like that was his best that he's seen him in a Hurricanes jersey. So, hey, if the head coach is saying that that's not numbers, we've seen Freddie Anderson in so many Hurricanes games from last year, this year, and for him to say that was his best game that he's seen, man, that has to mean something, and that probably makes you believe that he has to have the advantage going into this series, and maybe he gets the nod at goal.
We'll find out tomorrow. The Canes did practice earlier today. We are going to hear some sound. But speaking of the matchup against the New Jersey Devils, Sebastian Aho talked about how the Devils not only play with a ton of pace, but the Canes need to match the Devils' speed.
Obviously, this time of year, every team knows each other. It's probably not a lot of surprises, but obviously they're a good team, a lot of speed. We gotta match that, and excited. It's exciting time, and it's time to go again.
The Athletic right now on their website, they have a story to set up this series and other series. They are taking the Devils to beat the Hurricanes.
Oh, do they?
In 6 games.
Okay.
And one of the reasons why is they feel like the speed will be a problem for the Hurricanes, especially since Sebastian Aho and Max Pacioretty aren't there. So
Aho's there.
Aho is there.
Yeah.
But they're talking about the other folks who are injured.
You meant, okay.
So Sebastian... Did I say Sebastian
You said
Aho?
Sebastian Aho.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
I was like,
Andre,
we just heard from Sebastian.
Sorry, Andrei
You freaked
Svechnikov.
me out for a moment, Chris.
Andrei Svechnikov, excuse me.
You freaked
Sorry
me out
about
for
that.
a moment.
Sorry about that, I misspoke. I think I was looking at his name, and I was thinking,
yeah, it's fair.
Since Andrei Svechnikov injured.
Okay.
And so is Max Pacioretty.
And Teravainen out with their speed as well. Well, speaking of the speed that the Devils play with, they are a hardworking team, according to Jacob Slavin.
When you get drafted, what number
good.
do you want to
They're
wear?
a fast, hardworking team, but I think regardless of who we were going to play, we have to make sure, especially now, we have to just make sure we stay true to our game and what makes us successful.
Did you watch last night, and were you kind of thinking about how the matchup was going to go as you were watching possibly?
I wasn't necessarily thinking about that. I was just, Game 7 is always fun to watch, and so watching a little bit of it, but I wasn't necessarily thinking too much about it.
How do you feel about you guys heading into the series?
Good, really good. I think if we just, like I said, if we stay true to ourselves and what's made us successful all year and how we play the game, I think it's gonna go well for us. But we have to make sure we stay dialed in with that.
Second thing we want to bring up here in our big three coming out at the top of the gate. Canes have to protect home ice, right?
Yes.
Teams didn't really do that in the first round of the playoffs, and the numbers back it up. There were 50 games in the NHL. 50 games in the NHL that were played in the first round of the playoffs. The road team won 31 of the 50 games that were played in the first round of the playoffs.
That's so wild to think about.
31-19,
that is
the road team.
So wild to think about.
Canes were 2-1 at home, and they were 2-1 on the road. All 16 playoff teams in the first round won a game on the road. It's also the first time in the NHL's expansion era that has happened, that all 16 teams won a game on the road. 6 of the 8 series clinching wins were on the road, including the Canes in Game 6. There were 14 overtime games played, Chris. 14 of the 50 games.
How did the home teams do in that?
The home team only won 3 of those 14 games in overtime.
Oh, my God.
Canes were 1-0 at home in overtime. They won the one game on the road in Game 6.
So the Canes are the outliers in this, right?
Well, here's the thing. Here's where they are also an outlier as well, is that 7 of the 8 series in the first round of the playoffs, the team that won the series at some point trailed, whether they're down 1-0 or maybe they're down 2-1 in the series, whatever it may have been. The Canes were the only team that didn't trail in the series that won their series.
Okay, so here's what I get from those numbers just listening to you put those out there. Sounds like, in general, home ice has not mattered for anyone.
This season.
But this season, besides the Carolina Hurricanes.
Well, even for them, I mean, it mattered for them, I guess you could say, but on the road, they had the same record, 2-1.
Right. Yeah.
So this is where things get kind of weird, is because the Devils were down 2-0 to the Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
They lost those first 2 games in New Jersey.
At the Prudential Center.
Yeah. But then they went on the road and won the next 2 in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
Then they won Game 5 at home, and they also won Game 7 at home. So that's the thing. It's the weirdness of the playoffs. So we always talk about home ice advantage, home ice advantage. The Canes have home ice advantage all the way through the Stanley Cup Finals. All the way through to the end.
That's because Boston
got bounced.
They're out of there.
That lost in overtime at home in Game 7.
Well, here's Emily Kaplan talking about how home ice doesn't really matter.
There's been a couple interesting trends, though. The one is that home ice advantage just doesn't quite matter. I was actually asking a couple guys in the Devils locker room about it this morning. They didn't really have any theories why. They just said it's kind of weird. I think there's an element of no distractions on the road. I've also heard some coaches say that last line change and changing matchups, that's not as much of an emphasis anymore.
Okay. So that's something we always talked about in terms of having home ice. So in the NHL, when there's a stoppage in play and you have a face-off, the road team has to make their line change before the home team does.
Yeah.
So that's where you see guys like, for example, Rob Brindamore sees the other team put out their top line.
Yeah.
I know I'm putting Jordan Stahl out there because I'm matching up against them. So that's like the game within the game, as they like to say in hockey.
So normally this would worry me because, especially if we're looking at the way things shook out for the Carolina Hurricanes last season, they didn't win any on the road at all. So this would normally worry me, but this year, as we've already said, they're 2-1 on the road, so they've shown a propensity to be able to win on the road this postseason. They're a part of this trend of road teams winning on the road. So hopefully maybe this means that they can take care of home. They seem like they were the best team at home in the first round throughout the NHL. We have the stats and the numbers to back that up, as you just went through, and now they can win on the road. We'll see what happens when the series against the Devils get tomorrow.